In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the best value hotel I've ever stayed at. That includes a huge buffet breakfast with delicious seafood, relaxing onsens, and a traditional Japanese tatami room, all for $43 per night. We'll also be trying their insanely impressive Kaiseki dinner, which, as you can guess, was also a fantastic deal. Today we're in Hakodate, a city of 240,000 located on the southern end of Hokkaido. Hakodate is well known for having some of the best seafood in all of Japan, but it's also known for having extravagant seafood breakfast buffets that are unlike those anywhere else in the country. I actually stayed at 7 different hotels to compare their breakfasts, but we'll get to those in later videos. Today we'll be taking a look at Hanabishi Hotel, which at $43 per night was by far the cheapest of the 7 hotels I stayed at. First, we'll take a quick tour of the hotel and my traditional tatami room. Inside the main entrance was a garden and large lounge area. The hotel is located in an onsen area, so of course the main attraction are the onsens. There are both open air and indoor, separate for men and women, as well as saunas. Inside my room was a traditional bamboo tatami floor with a large table and some legless chairs, which were surprisingly comfortable even for long periods of time. There was a TV and phone, which were both probably about as old as me. And although the room was clearly old, it was well maintained and had modern temperature control, as well as a cupboard with amenities and robes for the onsen, or just to play dress up in, and a safe. There was another closet with a surprising number of futon setups, and a standard business hotel style bathroom. One thing that was funny about the bathroom was the toilet seat and lid weren't on straight. It was at like a 15-degree angle, so it kind of wobbled around when you sat down. Nothing crazy, and it wasn't a big deal at all, but usually things fit into place in Japan, so this was a bit surprising. At the end of the room, there were a couple more chairs and a table I never used during my 3-day stay, as well as some tea, water, and a fridge. There were windows that you could sort of see through, but I was told not to open them because it was bug season, and bugs are a lot bigger and scarier in Japan than Canada, so I made sure they remained firmly closed. Alright, let's head to breakfast. Hanabishi Hotel is made up of 2 connected buildings. The hotel originally opened in 1968, and I was definitely staying in the original building because this was my first time seeing an elevator with this style of buttons. The same room in the newer building apparently looks something like this according to their website. I will say that even for a 57-year-old hotel room, I was very comfortable and happy with it. A clear glass view into the garden would have been nice, but I can't really complain for the price of $43, which also includes breakfast. The breakfast restaurant was located in the newer building, which as you can see looked much more modern. There's no time limit for meals, but you do have to choose a time slot to arrive. It was quite a large dining hall, with seating for about 200, and the buffet was very impressive. I know I've mentioned it several times already, but it's still hard to believe. This buffet was included in a $43 per night hotel, and on that buffet were salmon, squid, Ikura, and mentaiko. First of all, if these were the only items included in the buffet, along with rice and miso soup, I would have already been happy. Squid is a special delicacy in Hakodate, and I couldn't believe they had such large premium-sized Ikura. This was unbelievable, since an Ikura rice bowl alone usually costs around $20, and this was self-serve. Salmon and mentaiko are also delicious, but only mediocre in comparison to the other two. I'm sorry for the upcoming camera work here. I really rushed through this buffet apparently. I must have been really hungry. The buffet also included a fresh soft tofu station, fermented cabbage and umeboshi, a miso soup machine, curry, rice, scallop rice with tons of whole scallops, loaded miso soup, a rice machine, and some more pickles. There was also a salad bar with green salad, potato and pasta salad, lots of fresh vegetables, and I couldn't get over how perfectly cut and blanched these broccolis were. That's such beautiful work. And for hot items, there was a ramen station, mapo tofu, some unlabeled fried triangle things, pumpkin and onion croquettes, Japanese bacon, wieners, hamburger steaks, fried eggs cooked in various styles, some in circles with perfect yolks, some with broken yolks, and some that were cooked in a heart-shaped frying pan, grilled shiitake and kamaboko, scrambled eggs, arrabbiata pasta, melon bread, white rolls, croissants, shrimp and bamboo in a thick sauce, shumai, braised pumpkin, simmered vegetables and squid, fried squid, grilled mackerel and salmon with grated daikon, tamagoyaki, a singular onsen egg, natto, roasted seaweed sheets, fresh seaweed, matsume zuke, which is a famous Hokkaido seafood pickle, and soy chili fermented squid. There was also a dessert bar with fresh fruit, tea and coffee, and assorted drinks. Not only was this selection incredible, everything was prepared well with fresh ingredients and looked extremely delicious. The potato salad was smooth and creamy. The mapo tofu was Japanese style, so although it had the fragrance of Sichuan pepper, it wasn't spicy at all and had a mild ground meat and fermented bean paste flavor, with soft delicate tofu and a thick starchy sauce. The salad was extremely fresh, crisp, and delicious, especially the perfectly cut and blanched broccoli. The grilled shiitake was soft and juicy, and the pumpkin croquette was surprisingly delicious. Extremely crispy yet chewy coating with a naturally sweet mashed pumpkin filling. Combined with the savory and tangy sauce, it was outstanding. The arrabbiata pasta had a rich tomato flavor with a slight peppery kick and perfectly cooked chewy al dente noodles. The shrimp and bamboo unsurprisingly had a strong bamboo flavor which I enjoyed, and the shumai was very soft, porky, and satisfying. Miso soup is always delicious in the morning, and it had a warm, comforting flavor, full of umami. The tamagoyaki, which was individually branded with a mark that said Hanabishi, was sweet, soft, and eggy. And another surprisingly delicious dish was the soy chili fermented squid. I did terrible camera work going over this buffet, but here is the exact same dish at one of the other breakfast buffets I went to. There's a famous and extremely popular fermented squid dish in Japan called shiokara, which translates to salted squid, and the Japanese people absolutely love it, but I can't say the same. It's got a very strong fermented seafood flavor, and a really off-putting slimy and creamy texture. The combination of those two things really don't sit well with me, but I always try it when it's there in hopes of acquiring the taste. This one looked very similar, except it was in a soy sauce with chili, and it was absolutely delicious. It had an extremely strong, savory umami-rich taste from soy and koji, which complemented the strong fermented squid flavor, and with the added chili kick and fragrance, it was outstanding. It still had a slimy texture, which was completely enjoyable without the creamy element. The seaweed was very refreshing with the added ginger, and the soft tofu with lots more grated ginger, dashi soy sauce, and green onions was creamy with bright and powerful flavors. Everything I tried was very good or better, but the real treat here is obviously the seafood, and you can make as many Kaisendons as you want, or just straight up eat Ikura because it's so delicious and expensive in Canada. As I mentioned earlier, squid is a delicacy in Hakodate. In Canada, squid is always just flavorless and rubbery, and it's not really good to be honest. Here, it has this extreme density and richness to it. Each time you chew, it becomes softer, and this slightly sweet rich flavor comes out and becomes more delicious with every bite. I know it sounds over the top, but once you try it, you'll believe it too. The salmon was tender, with a medium amount of richness, and although sashimi and kaisendons are good, my absolute favorite way to eat seafood is as hand rolls, which you can also make here. This is the ultimate way to enjoy sashimi in my opinion, since you can combine different ingredients, which all add a different element, and you can create a flavor profile suited to your own taste. Squid adds that dense richness, Ikura adds a salty brininess with popping texture, a little bit of rice to balance out the strong flavors, mentaiko for a strong, savory, spicy umami taste, green onions for freshness, and a little bit of wasabi and soy, all on roasted seaweed. Wow, I am getting so hungry just watching and editing this right now. Also, I guess there was purple rice somewhere on the buffet that I missed while I was doing my horrible rush job filming. Anyways, all the food was very good or better, but nothing really compared to these hand rolls. They were fantastic. To me, this is basically as good as fresh seafood gets. And for dessert, I had some yogurt and fruit, as well as matcha pudding and a fermented yogurt drink. All were delicious and a perfect end to an incredible breakfast. And after that, I probably took a nap in the futon which they set up for you while you're out of the room. The futon setup on the tatami mat was very comfortable, by the way. I highly recommend trying it. I stayed here for a total of 3 nights, so I had 3 breakfasts, and the food was consistently excellent every single day. Even the pre-made takoyaki that was sitting in a hot dish, which are usually not good, was delicious. A perfectly crispy, browned outside with an inside that was still soft and gooey. The only dish I had in the 3 days that was mediocre were these clearly overly fried squid rings. They were pretty chewy, but I still wouldn't say they were bad. The curry was delicious, with a robust, rich flavor, but each day the best part was by far the sashimi. Just look, I even had a whole dish of Ikura one day. That was a great morning. I truly couldn't believe the quality of the breakfast for the price. This was the price of a cheap business hotel, which I'm very familiar with. Usually for this price, you get a 12 square meter room and a breakfast that looks something like this. That's not to say it's bad, but this was incredible. I've stayed at countless accommodations in the same price range as Hanabishi Hotel, but never one with such a large room and unlimited premium-sized Ikura. So needless to say, I was already impressed with the hotel, but I also decided to try their Kaiseki dinner, which cost $35 US, roughly half of what I see Kaiseki dinners costing at other restaurants. Again, I headed to the same restaurant for dinner at my chosen time slot, and because of the low price, I had no idea what to expect. My meal was already waiting on the table when I arrived, and wow was I impressed. Just look at this. The most elegant meal I've ever been presented. I should mention that this was my first time having a Kaiseki meal, so I was extra impressed and excited. So many different elements with different vibrant colors, all on fancy dishes. Everything was perfectly arranged when I arrived, but as soon as I sat down, the servers lit the fires underneath the dishes that were meant to be eaten hot. I remember I was so excited, hungry, and anxious that my hands were actually shaking, which made filming take longer, and the anticipation was killing me. But let's go over the dishes, since I did take the time to film them, and they were prepared with such skill and care. Starting off with a sashimi platter of scallop, tuna, and a fancy squid roll. Shrimp chawamushi. This was a fancy vegetable ball in a crab consomme jelly. A small version of a classic snow crab vinegar dish. Braised shrimp, chicken yawata, kamaboko, flounder and masago, and a white peach kuzo mochi. I had no idea what this was at the time, but it turned out to be a sweet dish. A seafood hot pot with mizuna that was served with Hanabishi original grated daikon ponzu sauce. Beef stew, and then you'll have to take my word for it, but there was a self-serve section that included rice, scallop rice, lots of different pickles, miso soup, and loaded miso soup. I chose not to take additional time to film this because they had already lit the fires under the seafood hot pot, and as you know, hot pot is my favorite meal, so I didn't want anything to overcook. I wasn't exactly sure where to start the meal, but I figured the hot pot was the only real time-sensitive dish, so I began my dinner there. Tons of seafood and vegetables, simmering in a light fish stock with a little bit of butter added. The shrimp had a firm bouncy texture and mildly sweet flavor. The ponzu sauce had light soy, citrus, and daikon flavors, which complemented the fresh seafood perfectly. The squid was tender with mild sweetness, and the vegetables were extremely fresh. Mizuna is like a leafier version of Italian parsley, and enoki mushrooms always have a fantastic soft crunchy texture. I'm not sure what type of whitefish this was, but it was tender, flaky, and delicious. The crab claw was sweet and tender, as was the scallop, which was served whole. Next, I moved on to the sashimi. This was the best squid sashimi I've ever eaten. It was scored and covered with seaweed, and then rolled into a pinwheel around a piece of cucumber. The squid was so dense, sticky, and rich, which was contrasted by the fresh, crunchy cucumber. It was unbelievable. And along with the squid were delicious, soft and fatty pieces of chutoro. The scallop sashimi was very sweet and soft. Then I decided to try this strange-looking thing. I had no idea what it was at the time. The texture was similar to mochi, except jelly-like, and inside was the most delicious fresh peach filling, nothing artificial, just amazingly sweet peach flavor. I now know this is called a kuzo mochi, with kuzo being a type of starch that is used to make the jelly. And I was shocked at how delicious it was. This is now my favorite dessert, and I decided to save the rest for the end of my meal. The chicken iwata had a similar texture to kamaboko, or a chicken galantine if you know what that is. Crisp vegetables that were cooked inside a very soft chicken exterior. It was unique and felt very luxurious to eat. Next was the vegetable ball and crab jelly, which had a flavor of consomme and crab, along with delicious pieces of actual crab. The vegetable ball turned out to have something in the middle. I think it was coarsely ground fish, but I'm not exactly sure. It was very mild in flavor. The vegetable coating added a texture to the soft middle, but the main flavor was the crab consomme. There was also one piece of perfectly blanched celery that was a nice refreshing touch. The vegetable ball was good, but the crab consomme was excellent. At the start of the meal, I grabbed a little bit of everything from the self-service bar, but it turned out to be a ton of food when combined with the whole Kaiseki meal. If you ever come here and order this, I don't recommend grabbing the side dishes. The main meal is more than enough food. But since I had it, the scallop rice was obviously incredible. tons of fresh scallops, which made the rice slightly sweet and briny. The mild tender flounder was mixed with thinly sliced seaweed and lots of sweet and savory popping masago, another outstanding dish. It was so much fun to constantly eat such different flavors and textures in little portions. The tender flounder and crispy popping masago had wonderful contrasting textures. And this is a classic dish I've had many times. Snow crab with a vinegar jelly, and this, which is called crab miso in Japan, which is basically everything edible in the shell ground up into this paste. It has extra strong crab flavor and is absolutely delicious. It's usually considered the best tasting part of the crab, to be honest. And as always, the crab meat, miso, and vinegar jelly all paired together perfectly. This is definitely a dish to try if you're ever in Japan. The chawanmushi was served warm, and it had the mild flavors of egg and dashi with an extremely light, smooth, and delicate texture. And up next was the loaded miso soup, which again was completely unnecessary to the meal. This is one of my favorite versions of miso soup, and it had tons of sliced pork and even huge chunks of potato. It was very delicious, but also extremely filling. The last dish to try was the beef stew, which they told me would take about 20 minutes to heat up properly. Beautiful large chunks of braised beef and vegetables in a rich brown sauce. The meat was cooked perfectly, tender without falling apart, and each of the vegetables had the optimal al dente texture. The gravy had a rich and luxurious beef and wine flavor. It was amazing. With only a few bites left, the braised shrimp was cooked perfectly, tender and sweet, a much softer texture than the one simmered in the hot pot. It was also fantastic in the daikon ponzu sauce. There was also a large piece of potato that had been simmering in the seafood hot pot that was tender and rich by the end. It also had great seafood and butter flavor. And then, since I didn't want to waste food, I struggled through my loaded miso soup, and then the additional second bowl of regular miso soup. Then to finish my kaiseki meal was the final bite of my white peach kuzo mochi, a perfect ending to one of the most memorable meals of my life. Just kidding, there was also a self-serve dessert stand where I decided to grab some mango jelly and a warabi mochi with brown sugar sauce. They were good, but not nearly as delicious as the white peach kuzo mochi, so I probably should have just ended the meal there, but I couldn't help myself. And that was the real end to my first kaiseki meal. For 5,500 Japanese yen, this felt like insanely good value. Where else could you get a meal like this for that price? This was a must-try meal for me, and I would 100% recommend this to anyone, even my brother with a severe shellfish allergy. I thoroughly enjoyed myself while eating this beautiful and intricate meal. I had no idea how long I actually spent eating until I just checked the runtime on my footage, which turned out to be about 55 minutes. It was so much fun to constantly try bites of things that I wasn't sure what they were and think of what to try next. 10 out of 10 for this meal. And that just about sums up my 3-day experience at Hanabishi Hotel. It truly was the best value hotel I've ever stayed at. My total cost for 3 nights in a tatami room, including 3 breakfast buffets with unlimited Ikura, 1 kaiseki dinner, and 1 alcoholic drink, was 26,798 Japanese yen, which is equal to 172 US dollars, or 241 Canadian, which is unbelievably cheap. I will 100% stay at this hotel again if I'm ever in Hakodate. And let me just say that the building and room I was staying in were very old, but also very well maintained. The staff were plentiful and extremely helpful. They were always constantly looking to assist you at any time. I would definitely look into staying in the newer building next time, but for the price, it was well above anything I could ever have expected. The windows not being see-through was unfortunate, and the crooked toilet seat was a minor inconvenience, but those were literally the only 2 tiny negatives in a sea of overwhelmingly positives. The hotel is located in a pretty quiet area, but Hakodate overall is pretty quiet. It's a city for relaxing, and this hotel is the perfect place. It's only a short 5-minute bus ride to the downtown area anyways. I hope you enjoyed this hotel review from Hakodate. Please like and subscribe if you did. My food journey in Japan will continue soon. Thanks for watching.